Welcome back to RNN's special Sing Sing Education Behind Bars. Tonight we've been taking a look behind the walls of the maximum security prison and into their classrooms to learn more about prison education. We've heard from the inmates at Sing Sing Correctional Facility, and coming up we want to hear from you. Do inmates deserve a college education? We're going to take your calls and read your emails, but first we spoke to a proponent of prison education, Jeremy Travis, the president of John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. He spent years focusing on prisoner re-entry into society, first at the U.S. Department of Justice, then as an analyst for a D.C.-based think tank. Here's part of that interview. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us.
Very pleased to be here.
So let me start by playing devil's advocate with you for a moment. Why should prison inmates be educated? There are plenty of law-abiding Americans who can't afford the benefit of a college education, so why give that luxury to criminals who may not even be in a position to actually rejoin society and the workforce for decades to come?
Well, it's a good question. Even though you said it's a devil's advocate question, it's a very good question, because we are talking about scarce resources that have to be allocated for some important public policy reason. And I think the reason is, first and foremost, that there's a strong correlation between a education, particularly college education, provided to somebody while they're in prison, and a reduced rate of failure, reduced rate of recidivism, reduced crime rate when they come out of prison. And we tend to forget as Americans that most people who are in prison will come back pretty shortly. 40% of the people in prison across the country now will be released within the next year. So even though there are, granted, some people in prison for a long time, there's a lot of turnover, high turnover. So this investment, while people are behind bars in a college education, is a good investment in terms of public safety when they come back home.
Now, you've been studying this for quite some time, as we've established. What are some of the numbers that you've seen regarding the benefits that society reaps by educating these individuals?
Well, there's been a number of studies done across the country, some in single states, some for single programs, but the best study is a 3-state study that came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago that was sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education that showed that college education provided to inmates while they're in prison has a significant reduction, about a 20% or so reduction in the recidivism rate, what we call the failure rate when people come out. So it's a very good return on investment. Now, unfortunately, as a country, we've moved away from providing college education to inmates. Up until 1994, the Pell Grant program, a federal funding program, was available to allow colleges to come in and provide college programs, and that was eliminated.
I was particularly surprised by the transformation process. We heard from one inmate who said, you know, they come in as caterpillars, and through programs like this, they emerge into butterflies, people who can actually contribute something to society. Have you witnessed this kind of transformation? Would you say that that's the common link then once they go through an educational process?
The college degree, the college programs, is in some ways a solidifying and an external validation of what is a deep internal transformation for some inmates. We're not going to say for a moment that this is everybody coming out of prison meets these criteria, but for some inmates this has been a time of enormous growth and a turning point in their lives where they come out ready to be productive members of society, and society has to be there ready to meet them halfway.
And you mentioned those cuts in federal and state funding for education behind bars. Many correctional facilities now have to rely on private organizations like Hudson and Mercy College for that kind of assistance. Are there other options out there?
We have now 630,000 people coming out of our prisons each year, 4 times as many as came out of our prisons in 1980. So they're all coming back. So the question is, how do we use the time while they're in prison to have them return to our society as more productive citizens and more law-abiding citizens than they were before? And education is a big part of that equation.
Well, Mr. Travis, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us to talk about this important issue. President of John Jay College of Criminal Justice, we appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
And now, of course, we want to know what you think. Do inmates deserve a college education? 888-RNN-CHAT is the number that you can call, or you can go online to comments@rnntv.com. Your reaction is coming up straight ahead. As one of our callers mentioned, whether or not they have an education, many former prisoners encounter obstacles during their re-entry into society. Finding employment is one of the most common, with many employers unwilling to consider a candidate who spent time behind bars. One exception is the Grayston Bakery in Yonkers, which was founded in 1982 with the express purpose of providing opportunities to those who've had difficulty finding employment in the past, which is due to homelessness, illiteracy, or incarceration. I recently paid a visit to the bakery to see how they've turned a batch of brownies into community action. Charles DeVore spent his first night in prison in 1971 at the age of 18 and was in and out of correctional facilities for the better part of the next 3 decades. After his release in 1999, he was living at a halfway house when a counselor told him about Grayston Bakery.
And they hired me right away. You know, they didn't ask no questions. You know, was you incarcerated, this, that, and the third. They hired me right away.
Hired as a janitor, he's now sanitation supervisor and living a life he never thought possible given his background.
They say you go to jail, you get incarcerated, you pay your debt to society, but you know, as human nature, people hold things against you, you know what I'm saying? And by Grayston not holding that against me, and they was like open their arms up to me, man, it made me feel great. And it made me strive, you know, to better myself.
The bakery employs roughly 45 workers who mix the batter, chop the chocolate, and ice the cupcakes. A study a few years ago found that 70% of them had been involved in the penal system, but at Grayston, none of that matters.
This is a wonderful cake.
CEO Julius Walls Jr. explains why.
These people are humans. They live in our community, and they need to be treated as humans with dignity and have the opportunity to take care of their family.
The brownies don't just support the workers. The profits made by Grayston Bakery go directly to the Grayston Foundation to fund their literacy programs, child care opportunities, and housing initiatives for individuals living with AIDS. It takes a lot of brownies to create such wide-reaching social change, but luckily they're in popular demand. In fact, Grayston supplies all the brownies used in Ben & Jerry's products. That's 3 million pounds a year.
We like to say that we don't hire people to make brownies, that we make brownies to hire people. And this gives them an opportunity to work, to take care of their lives, to make a go of what they want to do with their families.
And Grayston has been a blessing to me, you know. Since I came to Grayston, I got married, you know what I'm saying? I got a son, he'll be 3-year-old Thursday.
In his 50s and out of prison for 7 years, Charles says life is sweet, and each day he strives to prove to Grayston, to his family, and to himself that he's making the most of the chance he was given.
So I don't want to let Julius down, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to let my wife down now, and I definitely don't want to let my son down. So I really got something to live for, you know what I'm saying? Basically, it comes to this, the bottom line, I want to be a decent human being.
Now, if you'd like more information about Grayston Bakery and how you can purchase their products, you can visit their website at www.graystonbakery.com. Still to come, the results of our online poll, but up next, a quick check of your headlines, so please stay with us.